Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another exciting edition of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live. As we have finally made it, this is episode 900. I am so excited that I can get to do my 900th episode, and I'm bringing it to you live here on Facebook. Such a milestone. I've had this podcast since January of 2020, and I've hit so many benchmarks and milestones, special shows. Over 90 guests have been on the Sports Beat. I've had live shows at Ivy Park, and I've also collaborated with Georgia Alabama Sports Live, and I am pleased to announce that this podcast is under the umbrella of Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Don't forget, you can catch an episode on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, starting at noon on Georgia Alabama Sports Live's Facebook page. This is going to be a very special show because I'm going to have my first college football playoff prediction. After seeing the action in week one, I have made a conclusion, and of course it could change because when teams lose, I could always change my prediction. I had a little fun with this. We're going to go ahead and start with that. The Braves were off yesterday. Right now, I'm coming to you late on Labor Day, Monday night. Right now, Boston College is leading Florida State 28-13. Florida State is just, they look awful. They're in trouble. And I think that Florida State is not going to win the ACC now. I'm excited about my list. I put this together, and I'm really happy to present my college football playoff projection. Let's go ahead and throw up that graphic. There it is. As you could see, just after week one, I felt that Georgia is the number one team in college football. I do think that they'll have a loss, and that they might have two losses. But I think that in order to get the number one overall seed, they got to win the SEC. I do think that if they have two losses and Ohio State only has one loss, Ohio State's going to be the number one seed. So those two seeds are interchangeable, but I do believe that Georgia is going to be the SEC champions and Ohio State is going to be the Big Ten champions. Miami, I'm a believer in Cam Ward. I think he's going to win the Heisman. I think Miami's going to win the ACC. And as you look at my projections, there's no other ACC team on this list. So it's going to be Miami flat out winning the ACC. And I don't think Clemson's going to be close. I think Georgia Tech, NC State, North Carolina, these are going to be some teams that, are going to get some wins, but I'm not a believer in Florida State, and I don't think Clemson is as good as people think. It was a toss-up in the Big 12 between Oklahoma State and Utah. I think that these two teams are going to be battling for the Big 12 championship, but there's other teams like Kansas State and possibly Baylor, Iowa State that could make a run. But remember that the conference champions in the Power Four conferences are going to get the automatic bye. And then I am just getting excited about these matchups, projected matchups, by the way, that are going to be at the home stadium. Imagine Boise State going to South Bend to take on Notre Dame. Why did I have Notre Dame as a number 5 seed? Because even if they go undefeated, which after beating Texas A&M, I think Notre Dame can run the table and go undefeated. The highest they can be is a 5 seed because they do not belong in a conference. I do think that Texas is going to be the runner-up in the SEC. And they are going to host Utah, which is going to be a runner-up to Oklahoma State in the Big 12. That's why I got Utah the number 11 seed. I mean, you could throw in a team. Well, what if like LSU is right there in the mix? What if Oregon is there in the mix? Well, I actually don't think Oregon's going to be very good after week one, barely beating Idaho, Michigan barely beating Fresno State. I've come to the conclusion that the only other Big Ten team that is worthy of a college football playoff berth is Penn State. And that's why I've got them at number 10. Going to Alabama, that would be a fun and exciting matchup. And then I got the 9 and 8 seeds, all SEC matchup, Ole Miss and Tennessee. I think that, Tennessee looked fantastic with their quarterback, Nico Aliamavea, who's looking really good. And this is really Lane Kiffin's year where Ole Miss has got to do something. But of course, those are my 12 teams. Let's look and see what my quarterfinal projections are going to be. And I'm not 100% sure that these are going to be the right bowl games, but Georgia hosting Tennessee, because Tennessee is going to get by Ole Miss in the first round. And it's going to be at the Peach Bowl, because I think that the number one seed gets to have the choice on where the site is going to be. But don't quote me on that. I will try to find out the answer. The Rose Bowl is because Ohio State is the Big Ten champ, and the Rose Bowl has always been traditionally the Big Ten champ plays in the Rose Bowl. I think they're going to be hosting Alabama, and that is going to be a fantastic game. That could go either way. I would not be shocked if Alabama pulled off the upset. So you got Tennessee and Georgia in the Peach Bowl, Alabama and Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, Texas, Miami in the Sugar Bowl. That is going to be a fantastic matchup. And I actually am calling the upset. The first high seed ends up getting the win. Texas ends up beating Miami in the Sugar Bowl to advance to the college football semifinal. And then you got the number 5 seed Notre Dame taking on the number 4 seed Oklahoma State. I think that Notre Dame, by the way, this is, if you can't look at that graphic, it's the Fiesta Bowl. So Notre Dame beats Oklahoma State. So the number 6 and number 5 seeds end up advancing to the semifinals. There's my semifinal predictions. We got Notre Dame and Georgia in the Orange Bowl. How about that? And then we got Texas and Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. And my national championship prediction, there you go. Georgia 38, Ohio State 37. Game's going to be in Atlanta. It's not going to matter because Ohio State, just like in that semifinal game a couple of years ago in Atlanta, Ohio State's going to have just as many fans as Georgia, but I highly doubt that Ohio State is going to lose it on a field goal like they did at the stroke of midnight in that semifinal game back in 2022. All right, so that is my college football projection, and I hope you enjoyed it. I really worked hard on those graphics. That's what I do here on the Sports Beat. 900th episode. Don't forget, you can catch an episode Monday through Friday on WQEE. I've been on the radio station there for 2.5 years, since January of 2022. And it has been fantastic. Monday through Friday, 2 to 3. It's an hour-long show. So sometimes I'll have little bits and pieces of shows that I do on Facebook Live, and I put together an hour-long show. I am my own producer when it comes to the Sports Beat. You can call me the Tommy Wiseau of sports broadcasting. If you don't know that reference, I'll have to explain that later. The Room, one of the worst movies of all time. All right, let's go ahead and dive into the sports. So I watched it on Netflix, the hot dog eating contest between Joey Chestnut and Kobayashi. They really hyped this thing up. It was entertaining. I mean, I do miss the fact that they used to battle and these two were rivals. But I thought it was pretty cool. I hope they have more Netflix flick specials. I'd love it when they have like The Match, or like they have like some big sporting event that is broadcasted on Netflix. I mean, that is pretty cool. Some of the week 3 matchups in college football, I'll get to that. I mean, Thursday night, not a big slate of games. Just there is no games for Thursday night because the NFL plays on Thursday night. It's the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs. So on tomorrow's show, I will go on Facebook Live and I will make my NFL predictions. And of course, I will go all out. I will create the graphic like I did with the college football playoff prediction. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm not going to try to be biased for the San Francisco 49ers. It's not going to be a situation where I say, well, this is our year. I said the same thing in 2019. They don't even make the playoffs in 2020. So I'm not going to say this is our year, but I do think a team has really stacked the deck in the NFC. The Eagles are looking very explosive offensively. They just don't have a defense. I just don't know if they're going to be able to stop anybody. But the Kansas City Chiefs, highly doubt they're going to three-peat. And the reason why is there's just way too many good teams in the AFC. They're all going to cannibalize each other. The Chiefs will probably sneak into the playoffs. Last year was kind of an anomaly because they beat the Bills and the Ravens on the road, and because both teams shot themselves in the foot. And then, of course, we know the performance of the 49ers in the Super Bowl. When they get to the Super Bowl, they blow a double-digit lead. That's just what they do. But Sunday, Atlanta Falcons take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Russell Wilson has been named the starter. I'm excited about that game. I do think that the Falcons are going to make the playoffs. They will make the playoffs for the first time since 2017. They got to beat the Steelers because then they play the Eagles and then they play the Kansas City Chiefs. The schedule gets tougher. So that is something to look out for. Don't forget, on the Georgia Alabama Sports Live show, later tomorrow, we've got the Glenwood Coaches Show. We got the Harris County Coaches Show. We got the Calvary Coaches Show. And I will be at Calvary live streaming the Brookstone Calvary volleyball game. The varsity plays at 6:30. We got Shaw and Columbus softball. Rick Beach will be on the call. Thrip Behringer will be at Mike and Ed's barbecue for the Glenwood Gators Coaches Show. And then we have the Muskogee County Coaches Show on Wednesday. And then we got Glenwood Volleyball taking on Beulah on Thursday. And then we will be at Dimel Field for St. Anne Pacelli and Stone Mountain. And then Thrip Behringer and I will be on the call for the Backyard Brawl at TC Britton Field Panther Stadium, as it's central. It's Smith Station. It's going to be good. And then Rick Beach from Kutsu Sports is going to be on the road as Harris County is taking on Doherty. And then real quick before I close out my 900th episode, it's really a special day. I tell you, I'm just excited about this day. Some of the football games I really want to see this weekend, Texas and Michigan. I think that Texas is going to end up winning that game. Tennessee and NC State, I think Tennessee ends up winning that game. Locally, Georgia Tech is going to be on the road taking on Syracuse. Remember the former Ohio State quarterback, Kyle McCord? Well, Georgia Tech's going to have to go up against Kyle McCord up at the Carrier Dome. Always a tough place to play for Georgia Tech. And I'm looking at Cal comes to the Plains, and they will take on the Auburn Tigers. Cal getting the win over UC Davis last week. I'm from California. I grew up watching Cal, so I know that people in the San Francisco Bay Area could care less about the California Golden Bears because they don't really care about Stanford either. But it's going to be one of those games where Auburn is going to have to set the tempo. They're going to have to find a way to win that game. I know it was close last year. When they went to Berkeley, they played a very close game against Cal. But this is a game you're supposed to win. So hopefully the Auburn Tigers will get the victory. Alabama is taking on South Florida. This time it's in Tuscaloosa. Remember last time Alabama, they almost lost that game to South Florida. And then that's when I had one of the worst hot sports takes I could ever say come out of my mouth, that Alabama could go 6-6. That was a terrible hot sports take. But I felt that. I felt that way after their performance against South Florida last year. I thought this team was doomed, but they turned it around and they ended up making it to the college football playoff where they lost to Michigan in overtime. Georgia, after their big win over Clemson, 34-3, they will take on Tennessee Tech. I don't think they'll get tested until week 3 when Georgia takes on Kentucky, a familiar face that they get to face, Brock Vandagriff, the former Georgia quarterback, the standout that played at Prince Avenue Christian. He was highly recruited, but he just wanted to transfer somewhere else because with the transfer portal, he's allowed to transfer somewhere else, and Kentucky has given him an opportunity. And just one more thing: Colorado taking on Colorado State, 7:30 on CBS. 5.6 million people saw Colorado beat North Dakota State last week. You don't think there's a fan base for Colorado? It's like Josh Pate says, the casuals. These casuals are watching Colorado. And so every game is going to be televised. I mean, you can count on that. I mean, that's pretty much what's going to happen. Georgia Southern taking on South Carolina State. Some of the other games, Troy is taking on Memphis. These is games for week 3. And now I'm back in week 2. There you go. Duke and Northwestern, that's on Thursday night. Northwestern's playing in a soccer field. That football stadium's gone viral. I mean, it's kind of laughable just to see that. Don't forget, the Atlanta Braves are getting ready to take on the Colorado Rockies for a home stretch where I feel the Atlanta Braves need to win this series. They'll take on the Rockies for a 3-game series. Then they will host the Toronto Blue Jays this weekend, a rematch of the 1992 World Series. And, of course, Tom Callahan's favorite baseball team there. And then they will take on the Nationals just for a 2-game series. The Dodgers, not this weekend, but the weekend after, for a 4-game series. And then, they play the Mets and the Royals to close out the Major League Baseball season. They're still trying to get that last playoff spot. Hopefully the Atlanta Braves can get that, and they can start making some noise in the playoffs and they get some of their players healthy, like an Ozzie Albies. Michael Harris II did come back from injury. Hopefully they can get Austin Riley back from injury, even though there were reports that he was out for the season. He might be able to be back in time for the postseason. Well, this is a condensed show, part of this show, because I did go 20 minutes for the scoreboard show that I do on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. So this is part of my 900th episode that will be aired on WQEE. I also have one more segment for my NFL 32 teams in 32 days. I already pre-recorded it. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching another exciting edition of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. Happy 900th episode. I know I'm going to get to 1,000. It's going to happen. It could happen sometime next year. I promise that I will probably go big on that. But an episode is just another episode, and I am blessed that I got to be a part of it. Thank you again for tuning in, and I hope you have a great rest of your night, everyone.